This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Dan Szczepanik, Global Marketing Director of Automotive Division with Sherwin-Williams. Dan, thanks for taking the time to join us.
No problem, Jason. Great to be here.
So we're going to dive into the world of paints and finishes, and we have, we're in Northeast Ohio. I know you're local as well. Fall is upon us. Winter is coming at us very quickly. But before we get to that, let's start off with some basic advice that you have for fleet managers that have to balance paint and finish durability with cost. What advice do you have for those fleet managers?
My favorite saying is, life is too short for cheap paint. When you go after that inexpensive paint, you're going to give up a lot, from processability to speed to application. And that's all in the labor part, where most of your cost lies. Really, when you look at the repair cost, only 5 to 10% is the cost of paint, but you're spending all the rest of that amount of money on labor, on energy, on time. So really, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're using that inexpensive paint to begin with. And then you got to think about durability. How long is that going to last out in the real world? Fighting salt, fighting the UV rays. So you're spending more money up front to put it on, and you're going to have to refinish it after a shorter amount of time. And if you go through that cycle, you will spend, on average, 33 to 40% more over a lifetime of a truck than if you use the quality coatings to begin with. And that's why we always say, use the best to begin with, and you'll save money on that total job cost.
Right. Well, the truck, often that first impression, right, as it rolls into the customer sites to unload. I mean, you want the truck looking nice. You want it protected. You mentioned the winter months and the coming slurry that we're all going to have to deal with, at least where the snow flies. Let's talk about that a little bit. So as we're heading into the winter months here, what indicators would show on the truck that are telltale signs of a needed paint and finish touch-up?
Yeah, that truck is your rolling billboard. You are advertising your company, your brand, every time you're going down the road. So what you need to look for are any dents, imperfections, cracks, repairs that need to happen. Because once you have that crack and that defect in the paint, you can have salts, you can have chemicals attacking that and attacking the surface. And today we have departments of transportations using these slurries, like you mentioned, calcium carbonate, magnesium chloride. They will get into that defect and they will cause corrosion for a longer period of time. Traditional rock salt, sodium chloride, the advantage it had was it only caused corrosion when wet, and it didn't absorb a lot of moisture. With the new slurries, they stay wet a lot longer. They absorb moisture from the air, and they cause corrosion for a long period of time. So that's what we're seeing. So my best advice is to repair any damage coming into the winter season, and that's really going to prolong that corrosion protection. And it really gives your fleet a better brand image rolling down the road.
Right, because that's that layer of protection. You mentioned the corrosion; it can just eat away at the body. And I kind of as an offside here, I know I talk a lot about service volumes and what's happening out there in terms of what's being serviced. And I know chassis and bodies have seen a real uptick this year. Again, that could be a number of things, but it goes to what you're speaking about there. I am going to toss something a little different at you too, because you mentioned it: UV rays. Protection from UV rays. What needs to be considered there? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think that's often overlooked.
Yeah, good question. So when we talk about coatings and the varieties that you can purchase, one of the big things is what kind of pigments are being used in these coatings. You may want to try an inexpensive coating that's an industrial coating, and they typically use industrial pigments. And those pigments are not the most UV durable. The way that they're going to fail is they're going to lose their color fastness, their richness, and they can actually shift over time. Some of the bright reds that are industrial grade, they will literally turn your truck pink or purple over time. You don't want that. So automotive quality paints automotive grade pigments are the premium pigment that you want on your fleet. Now, besides pigments, you want to look at what is the overall chemistry of that coating. And acrylic urethanes provide some of the longest durability out there. Now we're talking more on the gloss side. So once you have that richly refinished truck, it's nice and glossy, it's got the right color. But to stay that way, you want to make sure you've got that acrylic urethane top coat mixed with automotive grade pigments. And then the third thing that can help, and it's one of the most expensive items that we can add to a paint formulation, are some of these UV inhibitors, or they call them also HALs, or hindered amine light stabilizers. They actually eat up any of the damage that the UV rays cause and stops the damage immediately. So being so expensive, they are critical to long-term durability on the truck's top coat.
Boy, yeah. I mean, you mentioned the change of color there. We know how much time a lot of big brands spend on those color specifications, which are, to the number, what the color needs to be. You don't want it fading for sure or changing to a different color. From a service side, when you get down into a fleet, even a midsize or larger fleet, engines, tires, those tend to eat up a lot of the fleet manager's service attention. How do you bring paints and finishes top of mind? I know you all do shop audits. What role does that play in working on the service side and keeping trucks rolling productively?
Yeah. So shop audits, when done by professionals who know the whole process of the painting steps, are critical. When a shop has a painting process, they may think, hey, we've got it down pat. We don't need to do anything else. There's always room for improvement. There's always room to save more time, energy, labor when you're doing that repair. So look for a paint supplier that is going to have those professionals in there looking at your process from A to Z. Everything from when that truck comes in the booth to prepping, to cleaning, application, curing, all the way to even waste management of any paint that's left over. You'd be surprised at how much cost can be squeezed out of any process. And really, that's what we're looking at is to save time and energy. And rarely can you just do it by the cost of the can. You want to look at the total process. So the shop audits, spending time, and these don't happen quickly. You want to observe multiple trucks, multiple units going through, document everything, and then the presentation of the results of here's what we suggest. And you'd be surprised at how much savings are out there to be had.
Right, for sure. Well, you mentioned the paint disposal alone. I feel like I need a garage audit because I know I have a number of those paint cans at my own home from a fleet point of view that are servicing trucks. I mean, it's not only a space savings, but probably a safety and quality savings there in the shop as well. How would a fleet get involved in a shop audit? What do they have to do with you all to kind of get that into place and find those savings?
Oh yeah, it's simple. So we have tech reps all over the country. And if you ever gave us a call, let us know what you're interested in. We can show you what you're doing today, what you can do with our coatings. And also, everybody does not have the same needs. So everything is customized. We're not going to just sell you a can of paint and say, good luck. You may be really strong in prepping and application, but when it comes to curing and getting the truck out the door and on the road, because remember, the longer the time that truck spends in your shop, it's not making deliveries, it's not doing the work it's getting paid to do. So we look at every process individually and give you a customized suggestion of what you can do. So quick phone call, doesn't cost anything. And some of the information you can get would be pretty eye-opening. Now, keep in mind that using and utilizing our coatings are key to some of these because of some of the unique coatings that we can recommend. For instance, everybody has an epoxy, and epoxy primers are some of the best primers you can use for corrosion protection, long-term adhesion. We have an epoxy that I like to say it's not your father's epoxy. It is quick, performs well, and you can get that truck out the door ASAP. So it's really unique. So we have a lot of unique solutions, that can make your whole process quicker and more durable. And you won't have to see that truck again for another 8 to 10 years come through that booth.
Right. Well, Dan, I appreciate you taking the time here to shine some light on best practices for paints and finishes and giving me a little bit of a refresher. I know you're Northeast Ohio based as well, so you're looking at the snow that's coming here soon. So stay warm, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you so much, Jason. Take care.